going for the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams.
Hi, I'm Rupha Ramani and you're watching Firstpost. There's a lot of controversies lined up on the show today. One involves a top football superstar who is receiving a lot of hate for not playing an exhibition match. You guessed it. This time, though, China has its target set on Lionel Messi. They do not want him anywhere in a football ground in their country. And then, of course, there is that controversial run-out that happened, which was not given out in the match between Australia and West Indies, which made us all look at all the controversial on-field episodes that has brought the stubborn side of players to the forefront. Players who have not thought of anything but their own will to push the envelope and the rule book. And speaking of controversies, how can we look beyond Glenn Maxwell? But what is the weird connection between his career graph and a controversial episode? Stick on to know more, but first a look at the headlines from around the world in Sports 360. We'll start from the world of football. Chelsea rallied from behind to beat Crystal Palace 3-1 at Selhurst Park. Conor Gallagher scored twice for the Blues. Enzo Fernandez sealed the win for Chelsea with his final goal in added time. The result adds pressure for Crystal Palace, who just sit 5 points above the relegation zone. On to cricket. The Indian camp has suffered another blow in the lead-up to the third test against England that begins in India's Rajkot on the 15th. Rahul has been ruled out of the squad due to a sore knee. Devdutt Padikkal, his Karnataka teammate, has been called in as replacement. The 5-test series is now level at 1-1. Crossing over to the England camp, the team's encounter with visa issues continue after Shoaib Bashir. This time it was spinner Rehan Ahmed. Ahmed was stopped at the airport in Rajkot as he didn't have the correct paperwork. He and his team were off to Abu Dhabi during the 10-day break between the second and the third tests. Reports say he was just carrying a single-entry visa. Najmul Hossain Shanto has been named Bangladesh's captain for all 3 formats. He was reappointed as the skipper for the coming year. The availability of Shakib Al Hasan, Bangladesh's regular choice captain, is still uncertain. The 25-year-old Najmul is a top-order batter and has led Bangladesh in its last 2 series against New Zealand. And in a tragic incident in Indonesia, a footballer died after being struck by lightning. The victim's name is Septan Reharja. The incident happened during a friendly between 2 club sides. The 35-year-old footballer died in the hospital after suffering intense heat burns. Talent, audacious stroke play, big hitting abilities and flamboyance. Now, when I think of Australian cricketer Glenn Maxwell, these are some of the words that definitely come to mind. But recently, he has been associated with cursed Adelaide trips. Maxwell's trips to Adelaide have not been a major highlight for his cricket career. He was recently in the news after being hospitalized in Adelaide. It happened because Maxwell passed out after a late-night party at a pub. The news was reported widely across all media. Maxwell was not reprimanded for this because that week he was off duty. Still, a drunken night out doesn't reflect well on an international athlete. You only have to ask English footballer Marcus Rashford, who got an earful from the Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag. Maxwell too received a lot of flack from former Australian cricketers and captains and even the coaching staff of the current setup. But there's a difference here. Unlike Rashford, Maxwell didn't lie about his night out. Well, how could he? He was passed out, fainted and had to be rushed to a hospital. So no way a lie would have been possible, but even so, the media would have caught him in the act. The news gathered a lot of attention. Cricket Australia, of course, had to get involved. Strict action was required. Aussie coach Andrew McDonald issued a statement on the matter.
I've spoken to Glenn, had a good chat with him around the incidents. Him looking after himself needs to be a consideration moving forward. We have given him the opportunity to rest and rehab in that period of time. And I suppose the lesson for him around that would be to take his end of the bargain in that space and take care of himself.
We all remember this statement, but there is one thing about Glenn Maxwell that really sets him apart. Whenever he's put under dubious situations like these, he tends to come back stronger. After that Adelaide fiasco, a strong statement was needed from Maxwell. Not a verbal one. He had to first prove his place in the Aussie setup, and he did that. Glenn Maxwell hit his 5th T20 International 100 on Sunday at the Adelaide Oval. He smashed 120 runs off just 55 deliveries against West Indies in the second T20 International in an innings where he hit 12 fours and 8 sixes. He's now level with Indian skipper Rohit Sharma at the top of the men's T20 centurions list with 5. He certainly made a strong statement with that knock. Earlier I mentioned that Maxwell's Adelaide trips have often been cursed. Yes, that night out fiasco is not the only one where Maxwell has let loose in that city. He broke his leg again while partying with his friends in the very same city. The incident took place right after Australia's 2022 World Cup campaign. Maxwell, right after that careless episode, came back strongly. He recovered before the Indian Premier League 2023 season and had a memorable year with the Bengaluru franchise. But it's more than just about the city, isn't it? Max has a way of getting into these situations that makes it seem like he doesn't care all too much when he's outside the cricket field. He fell off a golf cart during the ODI World Cup in India last year, missed a game. What does he do thereafter? Comes back with a manic double ton in a must-win encounter to beat Afghanistan. It's insane and almost crazy that the two completely opposite characteristics coexist and deliver time and again with just the same amount of fervour. Whether it's indisciplinary, questionable actions off the field or heroic, unbelievable performances on it. Of the many unforgettable instances, Maxwell would certainly remember this one. But despite the 100, Maxwell couldn't stop thinking about it all. After scoring the ton, he finally broke his silence on the matter.
I think probably it affected my family a little bit more than it affected me. I knew I had that week off, and obviously that incident was less than ideal, and the timing. I knew I had that week off away from the game. I came back and got back into my running, my gym program, and it felt really good and refreshed once I got back. And it's all been focused on getting myself ready for the series against West Indies and what's to come.
The remorse is there, and somewhere you realize Cricket Australia too is doing its best to handle him with kid gloves. He clearly is an asset that has the weird habit of getting himself into these sticky situations. In such a short span, Maxwell has been involved in many injury scares already, and somewhere he senses now that he will have to hold up his end of the bargain to continue playing at the highest level and delivering for his country, his side. Because the rope, however long, will eventually run out. Maxwell will have to ask himself, irrespective of his incredible performances, how long will the board stick by him? If the indiscipline continues, will the board continue to back him? Australia has had their fair share of superstars who have been unruly. And maybe they would want to set an example of intolerance with Glenn Maxwell. He's off the hook this time, and with a World Cup around the corner, he knows that he's on very, very shaky ground. Now, how far will you go to win a game? That's a question that is at the heart of this next story. There are rules and laws, all important, that keep players in check, teams in check. But that has never stopped the wily, the witty and the stubborn to go ahead and bend the rules a little bit, not break it entirely, just go around it, sidestep it just to give them a chance at victory. Like what happened very recently in a match between Australia and West Indies. It was the second T20 international game that has caught our attention. And for the weirdest of reasons, the game witnessed a rather confused and heated moment after the on-field umpire overruled a run-out in the 19th over. West Indies' Alzari Joseph, while trying to take a single, was found short of the non-striker's end by a Tim David throw. Now, on usual days, it would have been a clear case of run-out, but not this time. The umpire decided to give him not out for an unusual reason. Upon seeing the replay, it became evident, though, that Alzari was well short of the crease. Aussies started celebrating, but only for the umpire to turn it down since there was no appeal. This, of course, led to a heated exchange between the Australian players and the umpire in question, Gerard Aboud. The Aussies were clearly irritated and fuming. There were words overheard, words said and exchanged. Tim David insisted he appealed. Someone was heard saying it was ridiculous. David Warner said it was a gross umpiring error. And then, of course, went on till the umpire warned them, saying it was heading into poor territory and they could be reprimanded. And they needed to get on with the game, which, of course, then dissipated. But the law says, of course, that the timing of the appeal, it states for an appeal to be valid, it must be made before the bowler begins his or her run-up, or if there is no run-up, his or her bowling action to deliver the next ball, and before time has been called. There is no reference particularly to an appeal coming after a replay has been shown on the big screen. There was a similar occurrence in the recent Australia versus South Africa Women's ODI series, where the Aussies were denied the chance to review an LBW appeal because the replays had already been put out on the screen. And there have been many such incidents on the field that have seemed daring, controversial, but were well within the rules, or just probably found the right loophole, like what Greg Chappell instructed his bowler, who also happened to be his younger brother Trevor Chappell, to bowl an underarm delivery. Now, this incident happened way back in 1981 when New Zealand took on Australia. New Zealand needed 6 runs of one delivery to tie the game, and Australia pulled a fast one. And this incident, even back then, was way ahead of its time, way more controversial for those times. And though it was legal and well within the rules, the boundaries of the game, it created quite a stir and was perceived against the spirit of the game. The outrage, of course, caused by the incident eventually led to an official amendment to the international laws of cricket, making it illegal to bowl any underarm delivery. But it is the human psyche that loves to bend the rules. Like when Sri Lanka and Bangladesh took on each other in the ODI World Cup game last year in India, Angelo Matthews etched his name in record books for all the wrong reasons. The former Sri Lankan captain became the first player to be dismissed through the timed-out law. Angelo Matthews was supposed to come out to bat after the 4th wicket fell. He did come out to the crease and realized the strap of his helmet was broken. The law says after the fall of a wicket, the incoming batter must be ready to receive the ball within 3 minutes. Angelo Matthews was clearly fumbling and asking for a replacement. Someone, of course, went on to whisper to the opposite captain, Shakib Al Hasan, to appeal for his dismissal, and he did not waste a moment. Matthews pleaded, in fact, with Shakib to let this go, but his smirk and apologetic shrug only meant there was no taking this back. Now, it's controversial moments like these that create a bit of bad blood as well. Matthews went on to call Shakib a cheater after the game. Sri Lanka went on to lose that match, however. And speaking of bad blood, there was tons of that when R. Ashwin decided to run out the non-striker. It was an Indian Premier League match, and the batter in question was England's Jos Buttler, who was playing for the Rajasthan Royals back then. During an Indian Premier League game, this happened, and infamously, it was called as munkading. Ashwin ran out Jos Buttler at the non-striker's end before bowling the delivery. Now, after Ashwin dislodged the bails, the umpire even asked him about reconsidering his appeal. Both Ashwin and Buttler were arguing much after the incident took place. And after the decision was referred to the third umpire, it came down in the bowler's favour, and Buttler was definitely not pleased.
If you look at the footage, probably the wrong decision was made. Because at the time he was expected to release the ball, I was in my crease.
A lot of debate, of course, transpired after this. However, Ashwin remained firm in his stand. He stood his ground, so much so that he said winning the game was much more important, and he would do anything within the rules to get there. Following all the debate, a massive rule change, of course, came about. According to the new rules, munkading will be called a run-out, and it will no longer come under unfair terms. But a fair warning has to be given before that. And as Ashwin said, one should take every single opportunity, especially if it's within the rules, and take it and grab it. Talking about taking every single opportunity, a similar thing can be said about Eric Cantona. 28 years have passed since Cantona launched himself into the crowd at Selhurst Park during Manchester United's game against Crystal Palace in 1995. Cantona was shown a red card for a tussle with Palace defender. And as he was making his way back down the tunnel, a fan hurled racist abuses at the player. Cantona responded in the way that he thought was best, just leaping in and kicking the fan. A lot of supporters praised him for kickstarting the kick racism out of football movement. He did end up getting banned, though, for 9 months by FA for his action, but he still had no regrets about it. One regret. He in fact said, "I regret not kicking him more." Oops. Well, that's how you would expect Cantona to respond. He was known for his fierce attitude on the pitch and clearly off it too. Now, the one thread, of course, that you see running through all these incidents is the stubbornness of it all. They went between the lines of the law to create controversy, confusion, just to go and push for the result in their own favor. But how far is too far, and how far is not keeping with the spirit of the game? And is playing in the so-called spirit of the game the only way to play? Now, Lionel Messi, strangely, is at crossroads. On one hand, he is getting all the adulation in the form of awards and wins. FIFA or the Football Association loves him. And on the other hand, he seems to have made some hardcore enemies in the East. The year 2024 has not exactly started off the way he would have liked it to. Cristiano Ronaldo's comments on the FIFA awards losing all credibility was just surface annoyance. We're sure that wouldn't have bothered Messi at all, but suddenly the apple of everyone's eyes is in the eye of a storm. It hit a crescendo when fans in Hong Kong showed their anger and displeasure rather violently, all because Messi decided to not take the field even for a minute in an exhibition match. And now the matter has snowballed into China cancelling the friendlies Argentina was to play in their cities.
Messi is the poster boy of football now. It just seems so natural for him to get all the love and adoration. Because he doesn't seem to be putting a single foot wrong. At least the west side of the world believes so. Argentina loves him. He won them a World Cup. The powers that be in football also love him. He's winning all the awards, be it the Ballon d'Or or the FIFA Man of the Year awards. America loves him. His screamer won Inter Miami their first silverware, the League's Cup. So all is well westwards, but not so much of his travels east, and looks like he's barred from doing so too for a while. Trouble started brewing when Inter Miami was scheduled to play a few exhibition matches in Hong Kong and then Japan last week. Messi did not take the field even for a minute in the Hong Kong match, and that enraged fans all over. They were livid. They demanded an explanation and their money back. The matter went right up to the government too, who demanded an explanation as to why the biggest star attraction, the prime reason for this exhibition match, didn't so much as even put a foot to the ball. The event received severe backlash from both fans and the Hong Kong government. And as damage control, the organizers promised a 50% refund, something that is said to hit them back by $7 million. Clarifications flew in fast that a groin injury kept Messi from taking the field. Even if that might have calmed them, what added fuel to the fire was Messi appearing in the second game just days later in Tokyo. Messi via social media conveyed his regret, saying, "Friends who know me will know that I want to give my best in every game." But the damage was already done. The anger spread to China, anger that was fueled by a very miffed Hong Kong. In fact, Regina Ip, the convener of Hong Kong's Executive Council, went on X, formerly known as Twitter, to say this: "Hong Kong people hate Messi, Inter Miami and the black hand behind them for the deliberate and calculated snub to Hong Kong, and that he should never be allowed to return to Hong Kong." In fact, media in China have been up in arms ever since, even pointing out that the injury Messi cited was probably not true. The latest episode in the storm that has been brewing is China cancelling the friendlies Argentina was slated to play in March. Two of them, one against Nigeria in Hangzhou and the other against recently victorious AFCON side Ivory Coast in Beijing. Both matches stand cancelled now. Speaking to the media, the Beijing Football Association said, "Beijing does not plan for the moment to organize the match in which Lionel Messi was to participate." Hangzhou has not been quiet either. They said, given the reasons that everyone knows, according to the competent authorities, the conditions for the event to take place are not met. So clearly, there is heavy resistance Lionel Messi is facing for not taking the field in one game. And it's now snowballed to China standing firm with a miffed Hong Kong. Messi has a lot of firefighting on his hands now, and it does look like it will take some time for the storm to quiet down.
That does it here on Firstpost, but we have a time for just a little bit more. It's time for Last Serve. Now, the Super Bowl was the talk of the town. World over, everyone was excited and abuzz with the incredible win the Kansas City Chiefs registered under Patrick Mahomes. And Las Vegas did its bet to remind everyone of that victory long after the night was over. Well, that does it here on Firstpost tonight. Thank you so much for joining in. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.